Hey everybody, I wanted to post the weekly announcement and we're going to discuss an ethical consideration for social work that comes up for me quite a bit, being a medical social worker who works in the medical system with medical professionals who have a very different ethical code than we do as social workers. We're going to talk about that a little bit, and we're also going to talk about some overarching themes, and one in particular that is always a common thread for all of my 510 folks. And that is high quality graduate level writing, what that looks like, and what we expect at this level, and how to do it. And so I'm actually going to talk about the themes first. So the theme with academic writing is such that there's a big difference between undergraduate writing and graduate level writing. And I remember these growing pains very well, particularly at the very, very beginning of graduate school. So many of you turned in your assignments for this week written 100% in your own voice. So that is all well and good. And most of you actually had really high quality writing in terms of no grammatical mistakes and appropriate sentence structure and things like that. However, when it's written 100% in your own voice, it's not academic writing. We're asking you each week to digest a fat stack of content, usually a couple chapters in the text and a couple articles. And we want you to digest those, to read those, to understand those concepts, and to then look at the prompts, the questions, the assignments, and determine how to answer them by using the course content and citations and also integrating in your own personal professional practice and voice. It may be something like this: Hepworth et al., parentheses 2022, describes strengths-based practice as, etc. Problem-based practice, according to Gonzalez et al., parentheses, year, is blah, blah, blah. Based on the scholar's work, parentheses, both scholars that you're citing, I am a strengths-based clinician because I utilize the following types of skills in my practice: strengths-based assessments, micro skills, these kinds of things. And so if you all have questions about this academic writing business, if this is totally foreign to you, I highly, highly recommend the ASU Writing Center. I will put a link in the chat for folks. And we don't take points off for this stuff up front. We want you to be integrating it into your future assignments. And if this feedback is not integrated, then we will take more points off as time goes on, right? Because integrating feedback in grad school is crucial. It moves so fast. If we do not correct these types of things early on, they will permeate throughout the entire graduate school experience. If we do not get a hold on this academic writing, your grades will suffer in all of your courses. And I don't mean to be like super doomsday. However, this is the expectation of the level of writing that we want you guys to be demonstrating. So I'll put a link for the ASU Writing Center. I'm also available to you guys on the phone, via Zoom, or in email. If any of this is not clear to you, please reach out to me. I want it to be clear. I want you guys to feel supported as you integrate this feedback, so let me know. The second thing that I failed to mention when I kind of went through my agenda with the themes is that about 90 to 95% of you did not do your introductory peer responses in video form. You did them in text form. And I actually made an error when I read the directions as well. And I led one of you astray and said, no, you don't have to do videos. So I made a critical error in that too, moving too fast, which is something that we can do in social work. Because we're always in a fast-paced environment. And so I'm constantly reminding myself to move slower and to be more mindful so that I don't make these kinds of mistakes. So I did take off 0.5 points for everybody who did not include captions in their videos. That was also a big theme. I didn't take points off for the not replying in videos, especially since I led you all astray, and Elisa gave me permission to not take points off for that. But if you didn't include captions, then I took off 0.5 points because there were multiple reminders to use captions in your videos. If you do not know how to do that, I am not a tech savvy individual, and I watched a 30-second YouTube clip and I learned how to do it. If that does not do it for you, ASU Tech Support is available to you 24/7, and they can help you with that. So make sure that you are thoroughly reading the directions, because some of these things will result in points being lost, such as the captions, and then not including videos. Those types of things will deduct points in the future. So those are the themes. Please integrate this feedback into future work, and again, reach out to me or Elisa if you are not understanding, or Dr. Cowam. So moving on into dual relationships. So in our ethical code, we take pretty seriously, dual relationships. Dual relationships, defined by our profession, is a relationship that, as it sounds, is twofold. So they are our client and something else. So they are our client and our friend from high school. They are our client and their mother is my hairstylist. So there's different kinds of dual relationships, and some of them may present varying levels of conflicts of interest. Conflicts of interest are usually, we shy away from those in social work, because in social work, we deal in some pretty heavy topics. We're not going into folks' homes like nurses on my home health team and teaching them how to pack a wound, or teaching them how to learn to walk again after a critical heart surgery. It's not the same kind of connection. We're sitting with them for 2 hours, reviewing their entire personal and medical history, their relationships, their finances, little t trauma, big T trauma. There are really, really intense personal topics discussed. And when we have dual relationships with folks, that can get very messy. This puts me in an interesting ethical conundrum as a medical social worker. So I am a social worker who works on a home health team with many other disciplines. And every single one of those disciplines does not have dual relationships in their ethical code. So often it's not understood why we as social workers have these very strict boundaries, and it can come up and be a little awkward. So I kind of want to pose to you guys a thought exercise this week, and thinking about this situation of being a home health or other medical social worker in the medical system, which historically, according to the text and many articles that have come forth since, is what we call problem-based, deficiency-based, and not strength-based. So then we also have differences in the types of language that we use to describe people. We have differences in our kind of practice and compassion that we have for certain populations of people that may be different than the medical industry. For instance, folks who struggle with substance use. I had interactions as a medical social worker in an inpatient setting with doctors who would say things that I would think would just, I'm picking up my chin because I can't believe what they've just said about a patient, because in social work, it is our norm to be strengths-based, not problem language based. We don't say that people are bipolar. We say that individuals have bipolar disorder. They're not defined by their disorder, although the medical system will often define them as such. And the medical system views things, okay, here's your problem, here's your treatment and fix for it, now you go do it. There's not the same understanding of the disease model in social work, where we recognize that substance use is a disease, that there are different genetic predispositions and social determinants that combine to create substance use. It's not born out of a vacuum. However, doctors would often get frustrated with folks, IV drug users who were coming in with endocarditis, a heart infection, very serious heart infection requiring surgery, or they had a blood infection because they were repeatedly like shooting up into a nasty sore, stuff like that. And doctors would say, I don't even know why we treat them. They're just going to go back out there and use again. Well, that's not the point. And social workers will treat everybody with dignity, because that is in our ethical code. These types of things are not as integrated into the medical system. And so I almost feel, not almost, I do feel that in our ethical code, that then puts me in a position of responsibility to work at the macro and meso level of the system that I'm in to educate and level set and assist in understanding these types of concepts and how complex humans can be, and how compassionate, non-shame based care can impact folks. Social workers would see every time that person with the blood infection shooting up coming to the hospital as an opportunity to utilize motivational interviewing to discuss their substance use, whereas a doctor would think possibly, and I don't mean to like talk mess, some of my best friends are doctors, but we have different frames of thinking. And so a doctor might think, well, we already fixed this. We told them how to avoid this. And doctors in hospitals are working in extremely strained conditions, particularly mid-pandemic as we are right now. And they're drained. They're exhausted. They've had no ability to practice self-care. And in our profession, self-care is paramount. So every week I will give you a mindfulness activity. This week we're going to do focusing. I will put that in the directions in the announcement for you. I highly encourage you to engage in the professional practice of self-care. And I actually highlighted in the revisions of our ethical code, this is what we say about self-care. It is not a joke, y'all. Professional self-care is paramount for competent and ethical social work practice. Professional demands, challenging workplace climates, the exposure to trauma, i.e. vicarious trauma, warrant that social workers maintain personal and professional health, safety, and integrity. I say what I do and I do what I say. That's what integrity means. I do what is in my ethical code even when no one is watching. Social work organizations, agencies, and educational institutions, that's ASU, are encouraged to promote organizational policies, practices, and materials to support social workers' self-care. That is a very heavy statement. I want you guys to really think about that statement this week. Our ethical obligation is to ourselves. And how rad is it that we get to practice in a profession that challenges us to do personal work? I don't know any other profession that really challenges their selves and the masses of the profession to dig deep into oneself, to better oneself as an ethical obligation to our clients. So we're going to talk about those things. We're going to talk about transference, countertransference. That comes up for me a lot in my social work practice because I had a rough and tumble upbringing. I was raised in poverty. My mom has severe and persistent mental illness, and when I was younger, some pretty significant substance use. There was some CPS, there was some juvenile justice in my early years. So when I'm working with those populations, I got to be right with myself or things get real weird. I am happy to have any conversations with you all about transference and countertransference or anything ethical that comes up in your practice. We're going to continue to have videos like this, and I'll bring up ethical concerns that I experience. There's a lot of them since I work in medical, but I would love to hear from you all. What's coming up in your internships? What funky ethical thing did you have this week? What client experience? Because if it was a good learning experience for you and your site instructor or your supervisor, it's going to be a good experience for your peers. So if anything comes up in the week and you think, hey, maybe this should be the highlight theme this week, get at me, email me. We'll talk about it. I'll make sure that it's appropriate and I understand the way that you want to present it, and we'll include those in our weekly videos. I want this to be as interactive as possible, and I'm hitting almost 15 minutes, so I got to cut myself off, y'all. But please reach out to me if you have any questions about this whatsoever. I'm here for you. Try the mindfulness activity, and I hope y'all have a great week. Integrate the feedback, and you'll be solid.